Hey guys, okay, so this is Group D for Cultural Studies for a presentation. We're going to talk to you today about euphemism. So I'm going to start this off talking about the definitions. So just going by the first definition is a euphemism is a polite word or expression that is used to refer to things which people may find upsetting or embarrassing to talk about. For example, sex, the human body, or death. That's going by the Collins English Dictionary. And the second one then is a word or phrase used to avoid saying an unpleasant or offensive word, and that's Cambridge Dictionary. Now, as you can see, both definitions are quite different, and the first one obviously being longer and the second one being a little bit shorter. So if we're to compare both those definitions, the first one is way more informative. It's straight to the point, and it gives a little bit more detail. So I think if we were to go by which one is more useful, I would say the first is a bit more useful. It cuts straight to the point, as I said. The second definition then, it protects the reader from the harshness of the definition of euphemism a little bit. It is more careful about how the topic is presented. So as you can see, using words like unpleasant or offensive, it doesn't really cut straight to the point as the first one does. So yeah, there are just two examples of official definitions for the word euphemism. Now I'm going to pass you on to Irene, and she's going to talk to you more. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to talk about some examples. For example, in the TV show called Grey Anatomy, season 12, episode 4, we can see scenes where two old ladies are attended by doctors, and one of them says old people, and these get offended to this lady, so he said, no, we are senior citizens. So for example, this is a clear example of euphemism. The other example is a little girl with her parents. The doctor says that his grandpa was no longer with us, and this was misunderstood with this little girl. He say, "Oh, where did he go? Can you take where he's now?" This is another clear example of euphemism, as they want to avoid to say he's not died, so it says he's no longer with us. So they want to say that he died in a really soft way, and we want to express through these examples that how in the daily life euphemism is used to get on offense people or tell things to others without hurting their feelings. Now I'm gonna pass with my partner Eva.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to theory and why people would use euphemisms in certain situations. So as you can see, euphemisms are created out of the context they are used in, plus different euphemisms are used in different contexts depending on the hearer as to not offend or to maybe hurt people. This is paraphrased from a text from the language sciences volumes. Okay, so what we mean by this is that in certain situations, going back to our previous examples, where the doctor was trying to explain to the little girl that her grandfather had died in Grey's Anatomy, the words used were no longer with us or maybe passed away instead of just being direct and saying that he had died. The doctor might have done this to soften the blow of the grandfather's death to the little girl, but instead all he did was create more confusion. Now, many people would use euphemisms in everyday life. Now, if we're using texting as an example, you might send maybe an eggplant emoji instead of, a different word that could be taken in a more vulgar context. But usually euphemisms are used in the context of death, like, the hospitals, relatives, but they have a wide context throughout everyday life. Theory is that we use them to soften the blows, we use them to avoid saying harsher or more unpleasant words, and we would use them to maybe just, try being more gentle in our everyday speaking life. Now I'm going to pass you on to Thea.
So according to the theory, the intern in the clip uses the wrong euphemism according to the context. So instead of coming out and say that the grandfather has died, he says passing away, as we mentioned. which can be misinterpreted. So instead of taking care of the hearer or thinking of how the hearer might interpret the situation, he thinks of himself as the speaker. And that's the difference between the dictionary definition, which is more on how the speaker might feel in the context, and Gomez's definition, which is more about how the hearer and adhering to the hearer's interpretation. So in this specific context of Gray's Anatomy, it shows that in the medical context, it's important to think of how the hearer might interpret the euphemisms and not of how the speaker might feel. Yeah, so that was euphemisms very shortly. These are our works cited.